For a while I felt like I was looking through a stained glass window where all the colors are rearranged. You don't have a clear picture. It's a juxtaposition of all these different colors and shapes. That's what Eve did with the song for me. Thank you, Eve. It's a beautiful. And thank you, men, for your wonderful accompaniment. Good morning, founders. You know, the science of mind is here not to simply let people think that you need to go somewhere on Sunday to do something, but to make your Sundays effective in your life, to bring something in your life that can transform the way you come about this life. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter whether you're male or female, whether you're black or white or brown or a color like green like me. The important thing is to remember that there is truly a way in which you can bring your consciousness to bear upon this world in a way that it reflects in your action and can transform the life you're living for you to really get into the life that has been waiting for you all this time. And so my subject this morning is grow, you can do it. My theme for the month is growth is the growth is the privilege of a lifetime. I see growth as one of the most beautiful acts of grace that God has given to us. It's a spiritual thing. And when we started off with that wonderful saying of St. Paul that when I was a child, I thought as a child, I acted as a child, but when I become a man, I put away childish things. It's an intimation. It's a pointing at the fact that we don't stay naive forever. There are many beautiful things about children, but we didn't intend to be a child, each one of us, forever. We intend to grow into the unfoldment to become mature, self-responsible, and spiritually mature also individuals. This is really the direction of our lives. And this morning what I want to do is both share a sense of the image of what it is that we're here to do by looking at somebody's life, and also give you some directions in how we can do it. Because science of mind is not only about the inspiration that need to come into our consciousness to expand the consciousness, it's also about giving you a sense of the principles involved in how you yourself can do what some of the great ones have been inspired to do. Whether we think about Jesus or Moses or Buddha, we must realize that there are people around us, or at least in recent times, who have exemplified many of the qualities that we admire in these great ones. We look at Jesus and we say, well, that man walked on water. Well, there are times when you have to walk on water. You look at Moses and say, oh, that man parted the Red Sea. And there are times when you have those obstacles that are tantamount to the Red Sea that you need to stretch in consciousness and to part it so that you can go across it. And when we begin to understand the symbolism, the deeper meaning of what these stories are to us, to you and to me, it transforms the way we see the stories. It's not like reading the newspaper and saying, gee, did he really do that? No. It's more like, this is symbolic of forces within myself that when I understand them, I will begin to see how they are similar to the problems I have and how I can get through them. I want to start out with a man called George Carver, initially. He didn't assume the name Washington, the middle name, until later on. And I want to bring up the fact that such a man was born in 1864 in slavery. And just to keep you on track, slavery was abolished in December 1865, so a year later. But this baby was born on the farm of Moses Carter. And his father, George, was killed before he was born, an accident on the farm. And he had several brothers and sisters. And his mother was Mary. And while he was only a few weeks old, the Confederate soldiers came and stole Mary and some of his sisters and himself, George. And so they disappeared. But Moses Carter didn't just give up. He wanted to know where George was. And he finally found out where he was. And through an agent, he was able to give up one of his pride horses to get him back. Moses Carter wasn't really much of a person into slavery, even though he had some. He didn't really believe in it. And when he got George back, his wife, Susan, Moses' wife, Susan, wanted the boy taught and his brother taught how to read, and they did. But the brother didn't really have much interest in reading. He preferred to work in the field with his stepfather, which they acted like parents to the children. And so it is that George started to stay behind. He learned kitchen duties, but he also learned other things. He learned how it was that he could make simple medicines because of Susan's teaching out of the food that they had. He was so fascinated with plants that he started to experiment and found out how to create natural pesticides and fungicides and soil conditioners. And in a short while, the other people around started to call him the plant doctor. The wife, Susan, insisted that her husband find a way to give George more schooling. And there weren't many opportunities for black children. And when Moses found a place, it was a 10-mile walk to the school and from the school several times a week. I don't know if you understand what walking 10 miles is like, but I used to run marathons and I have a sense of what 10 miles are like. And it's a long way. But when he was 13, he left the farm and eventually ended up in Minneapolis. And he attended high school there. And he earned his tuition by kitchen duties, working for a local hotel. And he concocted recipes because he was so creative with products, food products. But I want you to notice that there's a vision in this young person already. A vision that cannot be stymied in any way. And he wanted a high school education. And he finally graduated from Minneapolis High School in 1880. But that wasn't enough. He wanted to go to college. Yes, he wanted to go to college. And the first college he applied to was Highland Presbyterian College in Kansas. His application was so impressive that they offered him a full scholarship to come to the college. Only he showed up in the wrong color. And when he got there, they apologized, but they couldn't give him the scholarship. And so he spent his time looking around for other options until finally he was able to enroll in Simpson College in Iowa. And he thought he would just go ahead and study piano and art. I don't know how he got into piano and art, but he felt like he could be able to teach this and make his life as a teacher. However, one instructor there, Etta Budd, noticed how impeccably drawn his flowers and plants were. And she suggested to him that he go and study botany. And so he applied to the Iowa State Agricultural School. And he got his bachelor degree in 1894. And then he was so impressive and so brilliant as a student that the professors, in order for him to get his master's, kept him on the staff, the teaching staff, the faculty, until he got his master's. And then he became the director of research at that college and did some fine research about fungi, and things that people had problems with. He was doing very well, and his fame was beginning to spread. And even the Russian wanted him to do things. He was going all over the place and spreading. But I want to end this story quickly by telling you how it is that I have told you before, quoting Joseph Campbell, that sometimes you have to give up the life you're living to receive the life that is waiting for you. He got this letter from a man doing great work among black folks who were slaves. He says, I cannot offer you money, position, or fame. The first two you have. The last, from the position you now occupy, you will no doubt achieve. These things I now ask you to give up. You know, can you imagine? You work all your life, not really feeling as a human being. And by the way, one thing I left out is that when he went to this college, he said for the first time, people made him feel like a human being. But now somebody's asking you to give up everything. Give up your money, give up your fame, give up all these things. Here's what he's offering. He says, I offer you in their place work, hard work, the task of bringing people from degradation, poverty, and waste to full manhood. Your department exists only on paper, and your laboratory you will have only in your head. Do you think he took the job? Yes, he did. This is a letter from Booker T. Washington from Tuskegee Institute, inviting this wonderful George Carter, who then adopted the name Washington and became George Washington Carter. And the rest is history, because we know that this man, in what he did with peanuts, with what he did with crop rotation, we have no time to get into all these things, in what he did with the sweet potato. Even Henry Ford came to him to make rubber from these things, and he did. And Henry Ford wanted him to work for him, and the other great genius, Edison, wanted him to work for him. He said no. He stayed for the rest of his life. He was offered 2 rooms. 2 rooms. Most of the instructors had 1 room, so he had 2 rooms. And he stayed there making $125 a month for the rest of his life, doing the great work that he did. So I want to talk to you about how do you go on this growth track that I am inviting you to look toward. First, you must develop your vision. You must develop your vision. We must start with an end in mind. What is it you want to do with your life? Who do you wish to grow into? Who is the person you wish to grow into? Think about that. Write down whatever comes to you, even though it's vague. You may not be clear, but you have an inkling. It's in you. There's an answer within you, because there is an intelligence within you that knows what to do, when to do it, where to do it, and how to do it. And this will begin the process. Ultimately, it's not the destination, but it's the journey. You got to get on the journey. Growth is a journey. You don't know what you would be when you started out. You started out as a child. Look at you now. And yet, your life is not over. Just like Carver's life was not over, just because he had attained what seemed to be a fulfillment of his dream. There was another bigger dream, a universal dream right before him, one that evoked a great compassion as a human being for other human beings. We must understand that we can write our own mission statement. And that mission statement is to guide your vision. And it becomes the core of why you're here. If you had to put it down in a sentence or two, what would you say about why your life is here? Once you begin to do that, you will realize that you're expanding in consciousness. But expanding in consciousness is only a part of the journey. The consciousness must be brought down from heaven to earth. You must know what it is that you're going to do. What do I do with my life? Ernest Holmes says, life is what it does. You're not just here to think thoughts. You're not just here to affirm ideas. You're doing them for a reason, and the reason you're doing them is so that more can be expressed through you as you do things. You're here to do, not just to be. You're here to do. And the expansion of the thought, the expansion of your consciousness, is what allows you to push beyond the obstacles, to move the mountains, as the Bible puts it. But they're not mountains in Hollywood Hills. They're mountains of obstacles within your own mind. And those are the only mountains that count. The obstacles in your mind, what are you going to do about them? How do you get past them? And you get past them by believing that there is something greater within you that this thing cannot prevent. You are born a slave. You have no means to education, and yet you get education. It was a long way, but you did it, 10 miles. I'm bringing Carter's light to tell you that from a metaphysical point of view, Carter is living the life you're living, but the events are somewhat different. But the journey is the same. The things that you are saying are the obstacles in your life, are preventing you from moving forward. The odds are overwhelming at times, and so you must part the Red Sea. What is your Red Sea? What is that thing that you think is going to hem you in, and that you have been using as an excuse for not going forward? It's interesting that George Washington Carver, said 99% of the failures come from people who have the habit of making excuses. Oh, I can't do it because, I can't do it because, and there are many, many becauses. There only need to be one truth. I can do it because God in me can overcome all obstacles. And once you come to a place like that, you are in a transformative moment, and your vision allows this to happen for you. When you're going to write down what your vision or mission is, you can ask these questions. What is my purpose? What kind of person do I want to be? What am I passionate about? What inspires me? What are my values? And what makes me great? What makes me great? These are some of the things you can ask. And all of us can ask these questions. A mission statement must be active. For example, I develop my talents and skills to make a positive difference in my world and to attain financial freedom. That's a positive one. That doesn't have to be yours, but you can make it yours. The fact that Jesus and George Washington Carver were particularly interested in money, that's fine. That doesn't have to be your way. I want you to be interested in money and make a lot of it so you can share it, so you can help more people with it. He helped them with his knowledge. Some of you are in business. Make lots of money so you can help. And you can be a power for good in your community. That's what you can do. The second thing that I want to tell you is to check your reality. This is a reality check. You can't grow without some honesty, self-honesty. You got to look at the pros and cons of what's happening in your life. Now, in science of mind, sometimes we get so overzealous about being positive that we think that looking at the negative is somehow a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Adopting the negative is a bad thing. Looking at it is not a bad thing. You have to make judgment. You know, how are you going to make good choices if you don't know the pros and cons of your issues? You have to weigh them. Here's what you can use. In business, there's a thing that's called a SWOT analysis. SWOT. And all it means is strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. SWOT. Okay? The internal qualities have to do with your strength and weaknesses. So what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And you look at that honestly. And you see where you're going to need help. And you see where you need to develop more skill and knowledge about what it is that you do. And the external environment is what the opportunities and threats are about. What are the opportunities out there? And what could go wrong? These are the things you look at when you are moving into your growth dimension, whether it is in a business setting or it is your personal group. You look at these things. And then, after that, you set up milestones for your progress. Milestones. You know, Henry David Thoreau says, if you build castles in the air, your work need not be lost. That is where they should be. Now, put foundations onto them. I want you to understand that when we teach the science of mind, we're not saying all you need to do is pray. I have never seen somebody build muscles by merely praying. I've never seen anyone satisfy his hunger for food or for meals by merely praying. You eat, you exercise. There is a doing component. Consciousness is to be expanded, but consciousness is nothing but a dream if you don't put legs under it. We used to say in the science of mind, treat and move your feet. Treat was another word for prayer. And treat came from the idea that you are providing a spiritual mind treatment to whatever it is that is the problem. But once the prayer is done, you must now spring into action. Moses went up on the mountain and he communed with Spirit, symbolically speaking. When he came down to the valley, he brought tablets for the people with the commandment. You see what I'm saying? It's all right to have that expansiveness in consciousness, but now, how does that translate in what you do, in your work? This is the challenge. Get expansive here, but do something there. That is the meaning of the Lord's Prayer. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Or the meaning of Hermes Trismegistus when he says, as within, so without. As within, so without. When you begin to consistently see that you are doing this, something will change for you. So what are your milestones? You have to know where you're growing and how you're going to get there and when you're going to get there. So let me give you some. There is a thing that is called a SMART technique. S-M-A-R-T. And all it means is an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. You all get that? Your goal must be specific. Your goal must be specific. Your milestone. All right, I want to do this by such and such a time. It's measurable. How am I doing? How am I getting there? It's achievable. You're not a pie in the sky. Oh, I want to be a billionaire by next week. That's pie in the sky. That's not what you're going to get by next week. So that is not achievable. Realistic is also part of that. It must be within the context of what you can do with your life. The abilities you have. And the opportunities are due to you. And it must be time-bound. You can't just say, well, I can't just watch television every day and the time is ticking off, but who cares? When I'm ready, I'll do it. No. Time lost cannot be regained. Time wasted is life wasted. Time wasted is life wasted. If you're wasting your time, you're wasting your life. The transformation must begin now. When I had high blood pressure many years ago, I didn't know the SMART technique, but I was smart about the technique I used. And what I did is I went to the doctor, of course, and he didn't prescribe any medication. He said, I want you to start running. You're killing yourself. You're going to school at night. You're working in architecture, which is a stressful job. And that was why I leave it. I learned it. But he said, it's a stressful job. You're going to school at night and you have a family with children and all that. That's too much. You're not getting any rest. And you're not getting any exercise. Now, I was praying, but I wasn't doing all the things that were right to go along with the prayer. I had the within, but I didn't have the without. And I started running until I was able to run marathons. And of course, my blood pressure went from where it was, somewhere where it should be, to somewhere about, 117 to 70 or something like that. And, no medication. It was a transformation because as within, so without. I was doing on the outside what I was praying for on the inside. And this is really where your life must work. Now, once you set the milestones, here is the final thing I want to share with you. You must have supporting habits. Supporting habits. Once we expand the consciousness for what we want, the habit is really how we crystallize the thought into action. And I say habit because you can't be good one day at growing into something and then you don't do it the next day. You have to be consistent. And how are you going to be consistent? You have to love what you do. That's why we find that George Washington Carver was able to say yes to going to Tuskegee. He's getting less pay. He's in a cramped environment. And yet in that environment, he developed more than 100 uses for peanuts when the farmers were able to plant peanuts because it was only cotton they were planting. It would take out all the nutrient out of the soil, and peanuts would put it back in. And when they put it back in, they started producing so much peanuts, the farmer said, what are we going to do with all these peanuts? And he prayed. And he went back into his laboratory, probably one of those 2 rooms. And he experimented. He came up in peanut butter. He didn't invent it, but he reinvented it. All these things were attributed to Carter. For the potato, he found over 300 different uses. He made colors that he could use to paint. He made medicine. He made rubber. He made all kinds of things out of the potato. And the farmers prospered as a result of his work. And he wasn't getting a penny out of it, and he didn't care. What he was getting out of it is the fulfillment of his life. And I'm saying to you today, you have to develop the right habits to go with the right thinking. A seed remaining in the soil cannot grow into a tree. A thought remaining into the soul will not grow out unless you begin to do something with it. It is your commitment to living in a certain way that will demonstrate the power of your life. You are powerful beyond your own imagination. You have no idea of how much power you have in you. But it won't mean a thing if you don't do your part. God is always doing God's part. Now you must do yours. You can understand why I often repeat Aristotle's sage insight. You are what you habitually do. Not just what you habitually think. You are what you habitually do. If you're going to be a writer, and you're not writing, if you're going to be a singer, you're not singing, if you're going to be a business person and you're not businessing, whatever that is, if you want to be a better person in relationship and you're not practicing it, then I ask you, when? And the answer is no. And I ask you, where? And the answer is here. You have everything before you to grow, because it's the nature of life to grow. It's your gift from God to grow. And if you grow, you'll find a life out there waiting for you that you can't even dream of right now. God bless you all. Thank you very much.